What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the first 2025 Mets Talk Live for the 2025 season. How is everybody doing on this Saturday, March 22nd? We are only 5 days away from opening day in Houston, Texas against the Houston Astros, and I cannot wait. I'm ready. I'm packed. I'm ready to go head my ass to Houston. How you guys doing, guys? Welcome to the channel if you're new to the channel, and welcome to Mets Talk Live right here on the channel as well, and on X, of course. So, guys, the roster is nearly set, as Carlos Mendoza has been hinting and basically told us certain players has made the team, and we want to know the roster. We want to know the rotation, who's in the bullpen. The position players are basically set, as a few more guys have been sent to minor league camp, and it kind of starts with the first topic of the day with Hayden Senga, the last one standing, and will most likely, and it just, unless there's something that happens, Hayden Senga will be the backup catcher for the New York Mets on opening day. So congrats to him. A guy who was working at Whole Foods not too long ago is now the backup catcher for the New York Mets, and also had a home run, what was it, yesterday or today? So that's good news. And Brad, yes, and let me just pop that up really quick. On the side of the background right now, it's new merch coming soon and channel membership update. I will get to that after all the topics, Brad. So I have been working on just trying to figure out the best possible scenario for a membership. I want to do one sole membership for everyone. There's no different tiers or anything like that. Everybody gets the one tier, the one membership, and we'll go from there. But I'll get into that in a little bit later. And Brad, I watched the first episode of The Pursuit. I didn't watch the second episode yet. I'm going to watch it tonight or tomorrow morning because I am off from work tomorrow, so that's always good. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about because the roster is forming. The roster is coming to form now, and now we have a better idea of what we're going to see on the 26-man roster. And with Hayden Senga, we know the situation with Francisco Alvarez. We knew Luis Torrens is a good filling gap for Francisco Alvarez, right? We don't know what Francisco Alvarez bat-wise was going to provide us, right? We all hoped that Francisco Alvarez will provide obviously a little bit more in the average, but definitely more power than he showed a year ago. And we know about the hand injury, which again happened another time in this before the season even started. We were hoping for more power. We would say at least 20 home runs. That's what we were hoping for. We're probably not going to get that from the combination of Luis Torrens and Hayden Senga. I'd be very shocked if we did from both of them get 20 home runs combined. So we're not looking for power from these two guys. What are we looking for here? We're looking for good defensive catchers, and Luis Torrens provides that. He's very good behind the plate. He throws runners out. Hayden Senga also has a very good arm, has very good defensive skills. Again, the bat, it's going to be a hit or miss, right? You're going to see Luis Torrens and Hayden Senga probably bat 8th or 9th in this lineup, depending on who is in the lineup. And we'll talk about, the possibilities of the lineup, especially at the bottom of the order, changing from time to time depending on matchups, which the Mets are very keen on, which I'm not a big fan of. But we're going to have to talk about it, and we're going to have to deal with it, right? Mendoza and Stearns love to have the flexibility of players that they can do matchups with based on the pitcher on the mound for that day. I'm not a big fan of it, but they're going to do it, and we're going to talk about it. We might complain about it, and we might look silly complaining about it. But at the same time, we've seen enough of it to say, well, Mendoza was right a lot when he mixed and matched last year, and it worked. And sometimes it didn't. So you just hope it works more times than not. So when it comes to Luis Torrens and Hayden Senga, I'm just going to look at it this way. Give me defense behind the plate. Don't mess up behind the plate. Do your job, right? If you want to talk about framing pitches, that's great and all. I don't think it's a bigger deal than people bring it up to, but I think, framing pitches, throwing out runners, and having a good, comfortable relationship with your pitchers, right? The whole staff, not just the starter, the whole staff. And that's what all you got to worry about right now with the situation that the Mets are currently in, with the catcher situation with Francisco Alvarez being on the shelf because of the hand injury. Luis Torrens just got to fill in, do his job defensively, and whatever we get with the bat from Sanger and Torrens is just a cherry on top. And I don't think it's going to be very much offensively, to be quite honest. Torrens has a sneaky little bit of power. He's a guy that likes to put the bat on the ball, which I always like. If you're not a good hitter, at least try to put the bat on the ball. Things can happen. Fielders make errors. Let the fielders make mistakes. And Torrens has done a good job with that, even last year when he filled in for Francisco Alvarez. So we'll see how it goes. Defense is the main key here when it comes to the two catchers, especially with Francisco Alvarez out. Give me the good defense. Make sure you keep the runners at bay. If they're on base, try to limit the stolen bases, and we go from there. Again, anything you get with the bat from both of these guys is just a plus. So we'll see. Dwayne, this is the last year for Freeman. Yeah, possibly. I don't know if they're gonna put that strike zone thing in right away, to be quite honest with you. Only because I don't think it's perfected yet. And I don't think Major League Baseball is gonna put it in until it's 100% perfected. You can't have any issues with the automatic strike zone. You just can't have that. Because if you do, and there's mess ups and there's a situation where it's in a big spot and a pitcher or a catcher or a hitter asks for a replay and something's off, the system doesn't work or whatever, what the hell do? Do you replay the pitch? Do you replay the throw the pitch again? I have no idea. No idea. So it's very hard to figure out if they're going to do it or not. But again, we'll wait and see. It's not this year, so I'm not too worried about it just yet, but we'll definitely see. All right, let me just check the comments really quick. Let's see who's here. We got about 51 in the chat right now. We got Daniel here. We got Brad. We got both Daniels here. We also have Joel. We got Mike Rourke. We got Redman. We got Corpino. We got Omar, Sanders, Dwayne, Stan. Who did I miss? Elvin. Who else we got here? And that's who we got so far. Don't forget, guys, hit on that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Again, me and Chris, again, True Mets Talk with CP. If you don't know him, we do a ton of shows together. We did a ton of hot stoves together, ton of spring training shows together. We are going to be posted on YouTube a lot this year with solo shows and definitely shows together because of the fact that we're doing a pregame show and we're doing a postgame show, and we're doing it for every game. If both of us are not here, at least one of us will be here. Of course, things come up. You just never know. I'd be shocked if any of them get canceled completely. So there'll always be a show on both channels, or at least on one channel with one of our faces. So I cannot wait to get started. There will be other shows that I'll be talking about in a little bit, and we'll get started with the season. And that's what we can't wait for, right? Spring training can be a little, slow and then boring after a while. Like after the first week, it's like, all right, can we finish this up, right? All you hope for is very, very, very healthy team. Obviously, we didn't get that, unfortunately, but it is what it is. It's baseball. It's sports. People get hurt. Players get hurt. And you just have to deal with it and have the next man up. All right, guys. So there's been a couple of arms named to the bullpen as of right now, right? The obvious ones, right? It's Jose Butto. It's Reed Garrett. It is, I'm trying to figure it out here before I completely, and Danny Young. So those are the guys that are officially there. Obviously, Edwin Diaz and all that, but Reed Garrett, Jose Butto, and Danny Young. There was a question mark with Danny Young because of Genesis Cabrera, who had a really good spring. Also a lefty. Not sure why they went the Danny Young route, because he is more of a lefty specialist. And with the 3-batter rule, it's like you can get stuck in that situation where, yeah, you want to get Danny Young out there for that one lefty because you don't want to go to Minter too early in the ball game. You want him as a setup man. If you're going to put Danny Young, say, in the sixth inning, it's a tough lefty at bat, and you want to throw Danny Young out there. If you don't get that batter out and there's righties behind him, that's when you start to get into trouble, and that's where Danny Young gets in trouble. He's not very good against righties. So I'm a little shocked that they went that route, but the writing was on the wall when it came to Danny Young. It just seemed like the Mets do like him a lot. I'd rather go with Genesis Cabrera. He has more of an electric arm. I understand that he can be a bit wild, but he has an electric arm. He had a good spring. I'm guessing because Danny Young, I don't think Danny Young had another option, so I think they want to keep him on the roster, see if he's any good. If not, you get rid of him. And yeah, well, Joel, the difference with Jerry Blevins, especially when Jerry Blevins was good, when the Mets first got him, Jerry Blevins can get anybody out. Later in his career, when the Mets still had him, he could only get lefties out. He had a hard time against righties. Danny Young is a guy that is not good against righties. He is a lefty specialist. And again, those type of pitchers are, few and far between because of the fact that of the three batter rule, it kills those type of pitchers. Again, because I believe he doesn't have an option. So if he doesn't have an option, the Mets are trying to see what they have in Danny Young. If he performs well, you keep him on the roster. If he doesn't, you're going to have to get rid of him and bring Genesis Cabrera up here and have another lefty there. And that's what you just have to deal with. But because of the fact that Danny Young probably doesn't have options. I believe he doesn't have an option. Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he doesn't have an option. So if he doesn't have an option, the Mets don't want to just lose him. They don't want to outright him and then lose him to another team. So what you could do with Cabrera still being able to go to the minor league camp in the minors, you have the possibility of if Danny Young doesn't perform, Cabrera can just fill that hole. But what I don't like about that is like Cabrera has been better than Danny Young. We know Cabrera is better than Danny Young. Why not just put the better pitcher in that spot? I just don't like the fact that just because he has an option and he's not better than the guy he's currently, fighting us for a spot for, Cabrera was better than Young. This is why I get upset about stuff like this, with like the whole thing with Luis Acuna and Brett Beatty that we'll get into a little bit, is that Beatty clearly won the job. Like Beatty has completely outperformed Luis Acuna, but they want them both on the roster. So I don't know. It's weird to me, but again, the bullpen arms that have been named, obviously Edwin Diaz is a given. We all know that. Reed Garrett, Jose Butto, Danny Young. I'm not a big fan of this. I just don't like Danny Young. It's silly. It's dumb. It's a waste of time. But this is what the Mets have been doing. They're showing you what they're doing, right? What they do with Clay Holmes, they're doing the exact opposite of position players, which and with starting pitching, they're doing something different. With the bullpen, they're kind of doing it differently as well. But with the position players, they're kind of like, well, we want this guy, not because this guy was better in spring and he basically won the job. No, we're going to do this guy, or we're going to have them both try this out. It just doesn't make sense. Let's see. Let's see. Agree. As great as Beatty has been, I need to see. 100% agree, right? I don't care about the numbers in spring training with Brett Beatty. But at the same time, when your manager and David Stearns, the president of the baseball ops, says once McNeil got hurt, Brett Beatty and Acuna are competing for the job. They basically said that in the nicest way possible. What is the point of having a quote-unquote competition if you're going to put them both on the team? Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, And I agree. I forgot who said this. Joel said this. He says Platoon and Acuna and Beatty will hurt both of them. I agree with that. That's exactly my thought. But we'll get into that in a little bit when we get to the topic. But with the bullpen arms that we already know, Edwin Diaz, Jose Buto, Ree Garrett, and Danny Young. With the fact that the two rotation spots are basically up for grabs between McGill, Cannon. Let's see. Hold on. I'm losing my train of thought here, guys. I apologize for that. I'm just trying to figure something out here. So with Cannon, with Blackburn, it kind of seemed like those two guys and Tyler McGill, excuse me. Those three guys seem like they're going to get the roster spots. One of those two guys, I think Griffin Cannon's in the rotation. So that's the fourth starter right there. The fifth starter is between Tyler McGill and Blackburn. I don't want either of them in there. I think Max Kranick should be in there, but it doesn't seem like the Mets are putting Max Kranick, which, again, is so annoying. They told me and they told us that Clay Holmes proved it during spring to be basically the ace of the staff, the opening day starter. Yet, Max Kranick has been better than almost every other pitcher other than Clay Holmes. Better than Griffin Cannon, better than Tyler McGill, better than Paul Blackburn. Yet, Max Kranick probably will make this roster in the bullpen. But doesn't he deserve the starting rotation spot over McGill? Like, this is what I don't like, right? Paul Blackburn, I thought was a given. But it seems like it's not a given anymore that Paul Blackburn would be one of the spots in the rotation. It would be McGill, Cannon. Which, again, I understand Griffin Cannon. You gave him $4.5 million. So I understand them going to Griffin Cannon in the rotation spot. But Griffin Cannon has pitched really well in spring. So he deserves it. But when you go between Max Kranick and Tyler McGill, it's not even close. McGill had one really good outing, while Max Kranick basically had many good outings and one hiccup. So that's what I just don't understand. They're telling you that you got to prove it. According to Clay Holmes, according to the Mets, Clay Holmes deserved to get the opening day bid for spring training numbers. But when it comes to Brett Beatty and when it comes to Max Kranick, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, give the guy who had the best spring training the position and the job and the rotation spot and the spot at second base or in the bullpen. That's what I just don't understand. Because to be quite honest with you, Acuna does not deserve to be on the Major League roster when Brett Beatty has completely outperformed him. You're going to put these two guys in a position where, yeah, competition might be great and all, but here's the thing. What if Brett Beatty does hit in the regular season? What if he just goes crazy for the first 6 games of the season? When is Luisano Acuna going to play? You're not taking him out. And then Mendoza said the other day that, well, Framber Valdez, who is named the opening day starter for the Astros, obviously is a lefty. Is Acuna going to start on opening day? Now, that kind of completely backfires on the situation and what the Mets have presented themselves and presented us with was the competition. Stan Rob, there is no announcement regarding either Beatty or Kranick. Well, Beatty's on the team. Mendoza basically said that Beatty and Acuna is going to be on this team, right? He didn't say who's starting or not. Both of them are going to be on the roster. LSU Branchville will beat Queens by June 15th. I hope so. Year 0, wonderful. So Acuna, who's looked not good in spring training, and again, please don't give me the 14 numbers. I don't care about the 14 games that he played. I just don't. Look, it was important at the moment, and I loved it. I appreciated it from Luis Acuna. But you also have to, you can't just come to spring training and because your name is Acuna and you're one of the top prospects, that you're automatically going to get the job. You don't have to show anything. Like, I truly think that Luis Acuna is kind of bored. I think he's bored. I think he thinks that he belongs and that's it. He doesn't have to prove anything. And you know what? Maybe he'll become a really good player. But still, and everybody's saying Luis Acuna is a stud. What have you seen? 14 games? If you can go by 14 games, I'm going to throw you to Lessons Millage's numbers in 14 games. And I bring his name up all the times because if social media was a really big thing when Lessons Millage came up from the New York Mets, he had a great 2 weeks. And you never heard from him again. And he was a failed prospect. And he, not too long after that, he played for Washington Nationals when they first came into the league. So the fact is that 14 games, it was nice. He did what he needed to do for us in those 14 games, but we always go crazy with that. We always go crazy with something like that. I always say this, and it seems that like pick up their ugly head out of nowhere, where all of a sudden you look at it and say, well, it's been 14 games. Okay. Now the league is going to see Luis Acuna, right? They're going to see him now. So now there'll be a book on him. And now they're going to find his weaknesses. And after his little stretch of games that he played well in, he also had no home runs, no walks, and numerous strikeouts. So he wasn't great. He was good because thank God he was good, but we're making him out to be a Hall of Famer. And we got to relax just a little bit. Just a little bit. And I'm not saying that Beatty should just be playing second base and it's his job until, the end of time. No. Well, Joel, that's what the issue is, and Joe, that's what I was saying. The same thing with last year, where Beatty got the job at third base last year when he didn't deserve it, when Vientos clearly outperformed him in spring training last year, and they went with Beatty for nearly a month and a half, longer than almost 2 months. And I'm not saying that if they would have put Vientos, we would have won a couple more games or not. Who knows? But this is the same problem that I'm having with multiple spots on this roster. Max Kranick deserves to be in the starting rotation along with Griffin Cannon. Tyler McGill does not. Paul Blackburn does not. If you want to throw both of them into the bullpen, go ahead. Because it doesn't make sense. Because when the Mets said Clay Holmes proved it, what did he prove? He has good numbers in spring training. Oh, okay. Nice. So we're going off for spring training numbers. Now, I'm not going after spring training numbers. You're not going after spring training numbers. The Mets said that Clay Holmes proved it in spring. That's why he's the opening day starter. So if the prove it numbers in spring training matter to Clay Holmes, then why does it matter to other players that are fighting for positions? And it's not just about the Beatty Acuna situation. It's with the Max Kranick situation as well. Doesn't make sense, right? Why did Sanger made it over Reitz? Because Sanger had a better spring. That's why. So they're picking and choosing when to use the spring training numbers to satisfy their explanation, which is stupid. Zero, but it wasn't an audition. We knew Clay Holmes was going to be in a rotation. We knew Kodai Senga was going to be in a rotation. We knew David Peterson was going to be in a rotation. Right? At the time when it first started spring training, we thought they were going to go to a 6-man rotation with the Show Manaea and Frankie Montas injury. Clearly, they were going to go to a 6-man rotation. So there was clearly 2 spots available. We weren't even talking about Max Kranick yet until he started pitching well in spring training. It was mostly Griffin Cannon and Paul Blackburn. And maybe Tyler McGill. But now you add Max Kranick to it. So, again, this is what you just said. The question marks in rotation, therefore spring training is an audition. When you do an audition, no matter what career you're in, when you're the better person in that audition amongst others fighting for that role or position, who gets the job? The one who did the best. So there it goes. There is the big old answer to everyone's question. It's an audition, just like second base was an audition. Who won the job? Clearly Brett Beatty. Because here I go again. Why does Pete Alonso numbers in the playoffs, when he had really good numbers in the playoffs, did not matter, one, to the Mets or to anybody else in baseball to give him a long-term deal? They didn't go back to last year's postseason. You know what they did? They went to his season, which has a longer profile, and says, we don't think he's going to age well. We don't think he's going to put up excellent numbers for the next 4, 5, 6 years. Right? So there we go. And again, you cannot tell me. And Herb, I 100% agree with you. I'm trying to click on the comments and StreamYard just not. Oh, here we go. All right. We're getting there. So, yeah, Max trying to be a very good bullpen. I'm not disagreeing with you. But every game he pitched has been to start, to stretch out his arm. He's better than he was better in spring training based on the Mets prove it in spring training numbers, which they cared about with Clay Holmes, which, why? If you're going to do that, then do it with everybody. That's what I don't like. That's what annoys me. Why Clay Holmes can prove it in spring training, but Max Kranick, doesn't matter what he does, he's not going to go in a rotation, but we're going to put Tyler freaking McGill in there? How does that make any sense? And oh, by the way, if you do the off days and the number of games, if Tyler McGill and Griffin Cannon are the 4th and 5th starters to start the season, one of those two pitchers, McGill or Griffin Cannon, will be the opening day starter for the home opener at Citi Field on April 4th. So, yay for Mets fans. That's what I just don't understand. It just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. It annoys me. But, yeah, but Zero. Clay Holmes was a dominant reliever. Okay? Edwin Diaz in 2022 was a dominant reliever. Do you want him to be a starter? No. Like, Mariano Rivera was a great closer. Why didn't the Yankees start him if nobody can hit him? Clay Holmes had been a dominant reliever. You left that part out. Right? Reliever for the majority of his career. Little moments in Pittsburgh, when he first came up, he was a starter. Terrible starter, but was a starter. So, what did he prove? He proved what? That he can stretch out his arm, throw a little bit more pitches. Can we see him a third time through the order against real lineups? We don't know that yet. We don't know if Clay Holmes can do that. Can he get through a second time of the lineup through? I've seen it against minor leaguers, mostly minor leaguers. But let me see him do it on opening day. Can he get through the lineup twice, at least? Because if you get through the lineup twice, you're at least going to get to the 4th or 5th inning. So that's a good start. But you can't tell me that Clay Holmes' numbers in spring training is going to materialize into regular season numbers. Because haven't we seen that story before? Like, I'm sorry. Clay Holmes' spring training prove-it numbers is enough for the Mets to make him the opening day starter over Kodai Senga and even David Peterson, who both had good springs. Not better than Clay Holmes, but good. So if you're going to go with Clay Holmes had a better spring, which they clearly said, Clay Holmes proved it in spring with those numbers. So you're going to start him on opening day. Fine. I'm okay with that. I agree. But do it for everybody. Do it for Brett Beatty at second base. Do it for Max Kranick in the rotation. Because if you don't do that, what are you doing? So Brett Beatty, who has a great spring training, you might not even start him on opening day because there's a lefty on the mound. when he's been crushing everything, righties and lefties in spring training. So the fact that they're picking and choosing what spring training numbers to look at based on an individual player and probably who they like or dislike, so they're probably doing some favoritism here. I think Tyler McGill has naked pictures of David Stearns and Steve Cohen because he always finds his way on this team when he doesn't deserve it. So that's my major issue. Don't do it for one and don't do it for the others, right? Sanger, they did it. He played better than Reitz. He's the backup catcher. Simple. What's so hard about that? If you are the better player, just like in the chat when he says it's an audition. Yeah, it's an audition. Absolutely. So the better person against another better person, whoever is better, gets that role, gets that position. It's not rocket science. It's common sense. But when you don't do that, it's stupid. Like Danny Young shouldn't be in the bullpen. Genesis Cabrera outperformed him in spring training. Genesis Cabrera has the better arm. He can get lefties and righties out, which he proved in spring. Danny Young, we know can't get out righties. We've seen it already. And we also seen it in spring. Can't get out righties. So you're putting a lefty specialist in the bullpen that Mendoza probably doesn't want to use. And if he has to use them, and the lineup against the other team is a lefty to start off the inning, Danny Young's going to come in and face that lefty. But if it doesn't work out, and say he walks him and the guy gets on, and there's two righties after him, well, guess what? Now he's facing righties, and he can't take him out of the game until he gets through the three batters. So that's the logic doesn't make sense. And I understand why. I know why they chose Danny Young. They chose Danny Young because he has no more options, and Genesis Cabrera does. So they're hoping, which, again, here we go with the freaking hope again, not put the better player there, which, I mean, if you lose Danny Young to another team on waivers because he has no more options, Met fans aren't going to cry. It just doesn't make sense. Danny Young, who probably won't pitch well, most of us probably realize that and probably know that. You're going to make him get into a game and possibly lose games for us. And then we're going to be like, oh, it didn't work out. Let's put Genesis Cabrera in there. So you save an option. You save him on the team. You put him on the roster because he has no more options. This isn't a guy that had a great spring and you're like, you know what? Let's give him a chance. He hasn't. And he hasn't been good for the Mets during the season when he pitched for the Mets. So what are we doing here? That's why I don't like it. All right, guys, I'm just trying to catch up with the comments. Just give me a second. All right, here we go. Let's see. If Beatty is a platoon, he's on the long side. He'll get 70% of the games. This time to well, Zero, here's the problem with that. Is he going to get 70% of the playing time? Like, again, are you really going to – are they really going to sit Brett Beatty on opening day when he clearly deserves it and play on opening day? I don't care if there's a lefty on the mound. Give the kid a chance, right? You told us all spring Brett Beatty – I mean, they force-fed us Brett Beatty. They shoved him down our throats all offseason. That's all they talked about. It was all Brett Beatty, Brett Beatty, Brett Beatty, Brett Beatty. So put him out there. If he deserves it, if you think he is what he is, this is from the Mets perspective, then put him out there. Don't sit him against lefties. Play him. See what he can do. I just don't understand the logic. It's stupid. Well, Stan, we all can hope they don't go 0-5 and 22 for 30 and 33. Let's hope. Zero, I do agree with you with that, but the problem is the National League is damn good. Right? We know about the Braves. We know about the Phillies. You know, you got the Dodgers. You got the Padres. You got other teams in the West that the Giants got a little bit better. You always worry about the teams in the Central because, again, one of them are going to win the division. I think you're going to have to win over 90 games to make the playoffs. Like, I think that's how difficult the National League is going to be. So, the depth I agree with you is going to be important, but I don't want our depth to be keeping us afloat or getting us through the dog days of summer. I don't want to count on that. I want to count on the main guys. Now, I know with injuries and stuff like that, you're going to have to worry. You're going to have to use your depth, but the main guys are going to need to do the job here. Because the Mets didn't make that run based on their depth pieces. They made their run because Lindor started the hit, Vientos came and started the hit, and then Nimmo started the hit. And, even though Pete Alonso wasn't good, he actually hit a little bit during that time. And then you also had Harrison Bader, who was doing well. And then you had Tyrone Taylor doing what he did. And that's where, the main guy started to do the job. And that's when things started to change for the better. I'm sorry, it's 9 out of 10 times if you're worrying about the depth pieces or the lesser part of your lineup or your roster doing the job and getting you to the next level, you can only sustain it for so long. And then you need the big guys to come through. I don't expect Juan Soto to go, like be a ghost for 2 months, like Brandon Nimmo did last year, like Pete Alonso did last year, like Lindor did last year. I don't expect that because Juan Soto is a consistent player. Even when he's struggling to put the bat on the ball, he'll find his way to get on base. The problem with Nimmo last year, Lindor last year, Alonso last year is that if they didn't hit the ball, they were either striking out mostly or they weren't doing anything productive. And that was the biggest issue with the three of them for a long period of time. Alonso for the entire season, Nimmo for the majority of the season, and Lindor for 2 months. With Juan Soto, even if he's having a bad couple of weeks hitting-wise, he will find his way to get on base with the walks because he has a great eye. That is still productive. That's what when people talk about great hitters, and the reason why they call him a generational talent is you're a great player even when you're in a slump, you find a way to help your team and be productive in other ways. If you're batting 200 for 2 weeks, but you have 5, 6, 7 walks in those 2 weeks, you're still helping your team, not obviously, producing runs or putting the bat on the ball, but you're getting on base for somebody who might be hot. Like Pete Alonso will be batting behind him in the third spot. Maybe Pete Alonso's hot, but if Juan Soto just gets on base, Alonso hits one over the wall, that's a 2-run homer. How many times last year was there solo home runs because guys weren't getting on in front of the other guys that hit the home run? That was the big problem as well. So being productive while not hitting is still being productive for your team if you actually do something productive, like taking a walk. And the Mets had a hard time doing that last year. And hopefully that changes with this lineup that I think is going to be damn good. Let's see, Vince. Let's see. I wish some genius could tell me, baby. Yeah, we did have a hard time with them all. Let's see. We still have Brazaban. I don't know if Brazaban's going to make the roster, to be quite honest with you, but we'll see. The Phillies missed the chance. They were Brad, I've said this, Brad, you've been on the channel forever. Most of you guys have been on this channel forever. You've been on Chris's channel. You've seen our shows together. How many times have I talked about the Philadelphia Phillies slowly trickling down? They got to the World Series and lost. They got to the NLCS and lost. They got to the NLDS last year and lost. They're going downhill. World Series, NLCS, NLDS, all losses. What is next in the NLDS? Possibly a wild card series. I think the Phillies are going to struggle to make a wild card or even miss the playoffs completely. I've said that for a while. I know their pitching staff is very good, but their pitching staff has been better than most teams for the last couple of seasons. And even though I don't think the pitching was the main reason why they lost, they still lost. And again, until Bryce Harper actually puts their team over the top, which he's shown he doesn't do it in the biggest moments. As soon as he left Washington for Philadelphia, the next year it was Juan Soto's the team officially, and they won the World Series the following year. Now, I'm not saying that was a coincidence, but there's something about Bryce Harper that is clearly holding their team back. And I know he's a really good player. I understand that, but his team hasn't won. And when they've got to a certain point and then they lose, they get worse and worse and worse. And I think the Phillies are going to struggle to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be a fringe wildcard team, but I wouldn't be shocked if they miss the playoffs. And that's because I don't think the Phillies are better than the Mets. I still am worried about the Braves because the Braves, it's just hard to see the Mets beating the Braves, but I know we did it last year. We kind of slayed the dragon. But the Braves are the Braves. They'll find a way. You just hope the Mets are just better. And I think the Phillies are – I don't think the Phillies are bad. I just feel like when you start losing and you start getting closer, you get further and further away from the World Series the last 3 seasons, at some point, that group that they still have together, you're going to have to break it up because you're not winning. And that's going to happen soon. Zero, I agree with that. This is the team perfect reflection of Stern's philosophy. Yeah. But Stern's philosophy also hasn't won anything either. So just because it works during the season, it seems to fail in the postseason. And last year is a prime example. Just go with the Brewers. How many years have they had one of the better pitching staffs? They have one of the better pitchers in baseball in their rotation. But when it comes down to the playoffs, it comes down to the other guys in your rotation that are not as good. And it comes down to the better players on the roster, especially your position players in your lineup. David Stearns has successfully shown that he can win during the season. And again, that's always the start, right? You want to make the playoffs every year because sooner or later you might break through. But his philosophy also has failed mightily in his tenure. Last year was a prime example of what he's done with the Brewers for many years. And this time there's no excuse because he has the money. So last year, he got a bunch of guys. Again, I think he was looking for a situation where if the season went bad, he would have guys to trade away with no long-term deals, with one-year deals. Understandable. So it's hard to go by that from last year. But he had a trade deadline. He wasn't willing to trade any of his top prospects to bring in a better pitcher other than Paul Blackburn. It eventually cost us when we got to the NLCS. We got outperformed completely in the pitching field. That's what happened. So I don't want to hear his philosophy. It's a perfect reflection. Doesn't mean it's successful. Yeah, you might win 93, 94 games, make the playoffs. But when you get to the playoffs, who is going to step up? Right? Even if there's one guy who steps up, you've seen the teams that got to the World Series. You've seen the teams that basically did what they had to do in the playoffs. Even though the Dodgers had like 59 injuries in the rotation, at the end of the day, when they got into the playoffs, they were still counting. I know they did bullpen games, but they were still counting on Yamamoto. They were still counting on Flaherty. They were still counting on those big guys. Bueller. Those guys were better than everybody the Mets had. Better than most other teams that had in their rotation in the playoffs. Right? I would have chose Bueller over any of our guys because of the fact that Sean Manaea hasn't pitched that many innings in so long. I wasn't expecting much more from him. He was dead tired. He had nothing left in his arm. I love him, but let's be honest. Stearns failed the trade deadline. He needed one thing. He needed a top of the rotation starter. I'm not saying an ace, but he could have got a really damn good pitcher other than Paul Blackburn. But because it was a surprise run and he was still quote unquote, evaluating these prospects, so to speak, he wasn't willing to trade any to make your team better. I always hate that. I think it's stupid. If you're going on a run like this, you clearly see that this team is special for whatever reason, even if you don't have the better roster. For some reason, this team is special. They had that aura, they had that confidence. Maybe a top of the rotation guy could have made the difference. Not saying it would have, but when are we going to actually do it? And everybody can say this year they're going to do it. They better. I've been on record stating that I don't believe Stern's going to do it. I think he prospect hugs way too much, and I hope I eat my words. 100% eat my words. And he makes a big move at the deadline, which I think it's going to be for starting pitching. And we all know about Alcantara. And there was a report the other day that, top executives around baseball, having conversations with each other, think that the Mets are going to go all in for Sandy Alcantara. Relax. All right. I would be so excited if they did that because it makes so much sense. He has a couple more years left on his deal. He's under 30. It just makes so much sense. But do you know what you're going to have to give up to get Sandy Alcantara? Because it's all I hear Met fans talk about. Oh, we got to get Sandy Alcantara. You got to get Sandy Alcantara. Well, you're going to have to give up Acuna. You want to do that? Because I know Met fans are like, oh my God, you can't do that. I do that in a heartbeat. I give up whatever they want except for Brandon Sproat. What do you want other than Brandon Sproat? It's probably going to be 3 or 4 prospects, most likely 4. If you tell me I got to give 4 top 10 prospects for one of the better pitchers in baseball, and he'll probably be your ace for the next couple of seasons, where am I signing? Because I'm sick and tired of worrying about these prospects. I don't care. What have they proven? And they'll be going to the Marlins. And we know what the Marlins are going to do. They'll use them, abuse them, in the baseball terms. Let me just make that clear. And wait until they get into arbitration eligible years and trade them. So, sorry. And Stan, they will trade Luis Acuna if they have to. But again, here's the problem that the Mets are going to find themselves in. Let's say Brett Baty fails, which I know a lot of Met fans would be happy about. I don't even think they're rooting for Brett Baty. I think they're hoping Brett Baty strikes out 3 times on opening day, and they can say that they want Luis Acuna. But let's say Brett Baty fails, and Luis Acuna is at second base, and he plays well. Now that takes Luis Acuna out of the possibility of trading, putting in a package to trade for Alcantara at the trade deadline. Now you could say, well, the Mets have Jet Williams, they got Tidwell, they got Tong, they got Carson Benz, they got Drew Gilbert, Ryan Clifford, blah blah blah. Jeremy Rodriguez. You can go on and on and on in the top 10. Is that enough? Is a package with those guys without Acuna going to be enough? Because I don't know if the Marlins want Jet Williams. They might want Luis Acuna. But again, if Acuna is going to be the starting second baseman and Baty fails, you can't trade Luis Acuna because he's going to be your starting second baseman. Even if McNeil comes back, I think they're going to leave Acuna at second base. So that's the problem. And Brad, the Marlins will need hitters. Yeah, but they're going to be looking for pitching because pitching is a dime a dozen. Pitching is the best thing you can trade at a deadline. So I can tell you right now, you could trade Tidwell, you could trade Tong, let's say one of those pitchers. And we all know what they're going to do. They're going to get arbitration eligible in 2 or 3 years because they're going to probably right at the deadline probably throw them in the rotation right when they trade them. And you're going to see the Marlins and either Tong or Tidwell on the Marlins pitching against the Mets in 2025. So they're gonna start. So they're gonna start his service time, and then in 2 years, 3 years, when he gets the arbitration, they might keep him for that one arbitration. But after that second and third arbitration, they're trading him, 100% trading because they're not going to extend him. So, well, I'm a Brett Beatty fan. I believe Brett Beatty should get the opportunity. I'm never gonna not root for a guy who's wearing a Mets jersey. I don't care if I dislike him a lot. Everybody knew how much I hated Pete Alonso last year, and I've told you this for a while. How much I think Alonso inflates his stats, but I'm not rooting for him. You think in the postseason in Milwaukee, Game 3, 2 men on, 2 outs away from exiting the postseason, I was praying to any God that would listen that Pete Alonso would get the job done. So I would never. Yeah, Stan, that's wonderful. Elian Pena, sure, it'll come up in, when Juan Soto's 33 years old. Wonderful. Don't care. All right. Luis Acuna, I don't care. Again, where is he playing? Yeah, he might be playing second base. And this is why I hope Brett Beatty succeeds. Because Met fans look for disappointment. I think Luis Acuna is going to be good, but I am not stopping if Luis Acuna stops a trade for Sandy Alcantara, let's say Beatty's doing well at second base, McNeil is back, Acuna is in the minor leagues or still up. If McNeil comes back, Acuna goes back to the minor leagues. If David Stearns doesn't trade for Sandy Alcantara because he doesn't want to add Luis Acuna, David Stearns should be fired that day. That is the stupidest decision because Luis Acuna will not be the difference more than Sandy Alcantara, in my opinion. Because the biggest reason why the Mets lost was because they could not pitch. All right, where's Elian Pena going to play? Where's he going to play? Vientos is here for more years, right? You still got Lindor for 87 more years. Ryan Clifford's either going to be at first base or in a corner outfield. Nimmo will probably be a DH by then. If Drew Gilbert's still around, he's going to be a center fielder. So where are we putting these guys? Like, come on. We're talking about Elian Pena, who's 17 years old. Do we really know what he's going to be? Right? Is he going to be, projected to be like Juan Soto or Bryce Harper or Manny Machado? Who knows? No, I'm not debating one person because multiple people are talking about it. Well, Zero, I'm not saying to do it now. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, you want to see him pitch and stay healthy. I mean, I'm not trading for him now, even though I probably still would if the Marlins are willing to do it. I take that risk because regardless, you still got him for a couple more years. You're talking about the future. Sandy Alcantara isn't a free agent for 3 more years? So who cares? It's 3 years. Yeah, Stan, I heard that one before too. Alex Ramirez got $2 million, and he was one of the top international free agents. And where is he? He's hanging on for dear life in minor league baseball. So I don't care. Oh, they gave him $5 million. Great. He's a 5-tool player right now, projection-wise, at 17 years old. Now, listen, I hope he is. I hope he is. But if I'm going to worry about 2030 or 2029, you're forgetting that we have a season. And the issue that the Mets have found themselves in many times is that they don't do enough at the deadline. They have a need, and they go for the lesser player for that need. That is not how you win. I'm sorry. It just doesn't happen. The Mets, David Stearns failed at the deadline because Paul Blackburn wasn't going to start a game in the playoffs probably until the NLCS. And was anybody excited for Paul Blackburn to face the Dodgers if that was a possibility? No. Exactly. I don't care about a 17-year-old. The same way I don't care about Tidwell. I don't care about Tong. I don't care about Spur. Why? Because right now, they're not on this roster. And that goes for any other top prospect. Don't care. I care about Brett Beatty. I care about Luisano Acuna because they've been said, Mendoza said they're going to be on the roster. So great. I want to talk about them because why? Because on day one, on March 27th, they can be a productive part of this roster. That's it. I do not care about any of these prospects. Stop talking about prospects. I'm sick of prospects. How many more prospects you need? You got Nimmo. You got Alonso. You got Alvarez. You got Vientos. You got David Peterson for that matter. Like, how many more guys you need? Like, we fall in love with guys that are homegrown. And regardless of what happens, like, it took most Met fans, nearly until September to start turning on Pete Alonso. Because, you can't talk bad about Pete Alonso. God forbid. But he sucked the majority of the season. We almost not made the playoffs because Pete Alonso sucked so much. He wasn't the only one, but he was a big part of it. We got to stop about the prospects, guys. I'm sorry. There is no prospect. Maybe Brandon Sproat. I would not want to trade Brandon Sproat. I wouldn't. But if Sandy Alcantara pitches well in the first half and looks healthy and looking good, why wouldn't you want a proven pitcher that has done it before and is one of the better pitchers in baseball, and you'd rather risk not getting him and having a competitor that you might face in the playoffs get him, and then when playoff time comes around and you're throwing Frankie Montas in a postseason game and you're playing, I don't know, the Cubs or whoever, and they're throwing Sandy Alcantara when you could have had him, then what do you do? No, zero. Stan, he did suck, right? Stop giving me 34 home runs with his 88 garbage RBIs, because a lot of those home runs were in garbage time. A lot of those RBIs were nowhere to be found during the season. His runners in scoring position numbers, like I love how people just throw 34 home runs. Those are good. When you're Pete Alonso and everybody says you're great and nothing can hurt you, anything under 40 home runs is a down season. Because that's what you expect from Pete Alonso. You do less than that, guess what? That's a down season. The Mets needed you to do Pete Alonso year, not a bad year. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad year, numbers-wise. But when your runners in scoring position suck, when runners on base suck, when you hit more solo home runs than almost anybody on this team, and again, he was really good in the postseason. I'm never going to take that away from him. But he was not good. His strikeouts were up. His walks were down. Slugging was down. OPS was down. Yeah, Herb, and I just said it. He hit a 3-run homer in the postseason. I'm giving him all the credit in the world. He's been a very good postseason player. But that postseason moment almost didn't happen because Pete Alonso was one of the big reasons why the Mets were 11 games under 500, why they struggled for the first 2 months of the season. And even when the Mets were red hot, Pete Alonso was nowhere to be found. It was Lindor. It was Vientos. It was Beta. It was Tyrone Taylor. Like, it was Brandon Nimmo until late middle of the year when Nimmo got lost after the All-Star break. No, Herb, I never said Pete Alonso sucks. See, you're misreading what I'm saying. I'm saying we only look at the 34 home runs and the 88 RBIs, but do you look at when he got those home runs and when he got those RBIs? A lot of them were in garbage time. And he's done that his entire career. The only year when he actually had a year where he made outstanding numbers and they actually were in moments, and a lot of those home runs were big. A lot of the home runs were runners on base. A lot of those RBIs clearly were runners on base. Was 2019, his first year. Other than that, they were very padded. And then when I talk about, well, he was on a team that wasn't good, so there was no pressure on him. And you can go about your business. And as soon as, when everybody started to turn against him, he got worse. And maybe the contract was in his head. Understandably, he's not the only player in the world. Easy, I agree with you. Like, Pete Alonso has good numbers in the postseason. Not great numbers, good numbers. But he was one of the reasons why we almost didn't make the playoffs. If the Mets didn't make the playoffs, we would go back all about the regular season and what happened, right? You're going to blame Lindor for the first month and a half because he was terrible. Brandon Nimmo was one of the hottest hitters in baseball. Great. Pete Alonso was nowhere to be found for nearly 3 months and for most of the season. Like, we all forget about that. Nobody wants to talk about it and don't want to bring it up. And, Chris did a great job. He put up a video last year, I think it was sometime in September, all about Pete Alonso's, and he broke down all the numbers. Don't just give me home runs and RBIs, because 34 and 88 for Pete Alonso is his worst season of his career. And then on top of that, because again, when you talk about Pete Alonso, you want 40 home runs probably as a minimum, because that's what you expect from him. He didn't hit 37 or 38. He hit 34 with 88 RBIs. Brandon Nimmo had more RBIs than him. Not by many, but he did. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't even be close. Yeah, Herv, I agree. He did kick the Phillies' ass. But you know what? Tyrone Taylor did too. Lindor did too. Well, I'm not going to go as a 6 hitter. That's a little crazy, right? Pete Alonso deserves to be in the top 4 in the lineup, right? But all the lovely Met fans that said that Pete Alonso has never had protection, never brings up protection when he had a good season, right? 2019, who was protecting him? J.D. Davis, right? We have all these years. Oh, Pete Alonso was not having no protection. So he was hitting great. He was 44 home runs, 120 RBIs with no protection. But as soon as he has a bad season, oh, he doesn't have protection. So why didn't you say that when he had a great year? What was it, magic? No. So don't give me that nonsense with protection. Now he has absolutely no excuse. He's going to have Juan Soto in front of him and Vientos behind him. You can't almost ask for any protection better than what you're going to get this year. And you know what? He should have a good season. He should have a great season. But it better be good, because I'm going to tell you this right now. I still believe this. If he has a great season, he's going to opt out. The Mets are not going to sign him. They're either going to have Ryan Clifford at first base, their top prospect, or go after Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You can book that right now on March 22nd at 9:04 p.m. I've said it here. It's going to be one of those two guys. And somebody said, oh, where is it? Stan, have you watched Pete this spring? I absolutely have. And you know what? That is the Pete Alonso that I expect. The guy who, even when there's pitches that is kind of tricky, kind of be on the outside corner, a little off the plate, he's not trying to pull the ball and overswing. He's taking it the other way. The best Pete Alonso is when he's driving the ball to right center. He's done that a lot in spring. He's trying to cut down on his strikeouts and take a couple more walks, not trying to always hit the home run. Great. Because Pete Alonso will hit the mistakes out of the ballpark. He will easily hit those home runs. But what he's been doing in spring training, and me and Chris talked about it. Go back to our other shows, our Mets Hot Stove shows, our spring training report shows. We kept on saying it. We love what Pete Alonso's trying to do, where he's not trying to force the ball to the pull side. If the ball's on the outside corner, flick it the other way, drive it to right center. That's when Pete Alonso's at his best. He's strong enough to get that ball out of the ballpark, but hit the ball in the gap. When Pete Alonso was being Pete Alonso, he's driving the ball in the right center field gap. When he's hitting the ball hard to the right side, that's when Pete Alonso's at his best. In spring training, he's done that a lot. I love this Pete Alonso. Well, Stan, sure. But again, why Pete Alonso? And this is what I just never understood, right? When you have a great year, right? 2022 was one of his better seasons. Why in 2023? And he talked about this. In 2023, he went away from what was successful the prior season. Why change it? I never understood that. And he's not the only one, and many players do it. But I don't understand why. Well, Elvin, that would be nice if Pete Alonso could hit 270. But again, let him hit his career. What is it, 255, 260? Let him hit 260. But he needs to hit 40 home runs or more. He needs to do that. Anything less is a problem. Yeah, I think Kyle Tucker's going to go to the Yankees. I'm not so sure if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to go to the Red Sox, to be quite honest with you. But we'll see. Sanders, I wouldn't sign the Japanese slugger, to be quite honest, Murakami, because, that's a question mark. And when you have Ryan Clifford, who's shown power in the minors, obviously that's the minors, but he's been hitting for power in all leagues in the minors, and he's shown in his spring training, and he's definitely can be a first baseman. I'd rather try it with the top prospect. I would. If you're not going to get Vladimir Guerrero, and I don't think the Mets are going to re-sign Pete Alonso, go with Ryan Clifford. I'd rather spend that money elsewhere to get better in the pitching market or another position player. Who knows? Easy, I agree. I mean, Aaron Judge never has protection, yet he has MVP numbers every year, batting over 300, 50 plus home runs, 100 plus RBIs every single time. .245, 35, and 110. Well, he didn't do that. He hit 38, 38 on 34 home runs and 88 RBIs. I would take 245 if the RBI is over 100. That means he actually put the bat on the ball a little bit more. And it wasn't just pure numbers that was a problem. It was the strikeouts, right? You can talk about home runs and batting average and RBIs all you want. The strikeouts were up. The walks were down. That was a big problem. His run numbers were runners in scoring position and men on base, and in big situations were disgustingly bad. Again, all I gotta tell you guys is to go to Chris's channel. I believe he posted it in September of last year about the Pete Alonso numbers. He broke it down beautifully. Everything was bad with Pete Alonso. All right. I don't remember teams in the offseason going crazy to get him when they signed every other first baseman on the market except for Pete Alonso. They couldn't stay away from him faster. And again, it's going to benefit the Mets because I think Pete Alonso as a Met would be better here than anywhere else. Because Pete Alonso's part of that power. If Pete Alonso hits 34 home runs, that means that's one less guy that we should have 35 plus 30 home runs of, right? There's a possibility the Mets can have 4 guys that hit over 30 home runs. That's a possibility. If Pete Alonso's not in that mix, then, which he should, Pete Alonso is a pure power hitter. He does nothing else well at the plate. He's not a big average guy. So his home runs is where he gets the majority of his RBIs because he's a pure power hitter. And that's fine. But again, you can't bat 240 or 230 and hit 34 home runs and then have less than 100 RBIs. How is that helping your team completely? When you're supposed to be the biggest power guy in this lineup, which he still is, by the way. He's a better power hitter than Juan Soto. Soto's a better all-around hitter, but Pete Alonso's the better power hitter. See, I gave credit to Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is known for 40 home runs. That should be his minimum. If he doesn't hit that, it's a problem. And I'm not going to say, oh, he hit 39 home runs. It's not 40. I'm okay with that. But you hit 4, 5, 6 less home runs, that's a huge difference. That can be between 10 to 15 RBIs with 4 or 5 less home runs. That's a huge deal. Huge deal. Herb, yes, I do know that. But we're not talking about comparing Judge to Alonso because there is no contest. Judge is a totally better player, completely better player than Alonso. But Alonso has better numbers in the postseason. See, more credit to Pete Alonso. And again, I don't care how much he struck out less than Aaron Judge. The problem is Pete Alonso struck out more than he done in his career last year. It was a big problem. He never stopped chasing that slider on the outside corner. He completely kept on going for it, never figured it out throughout the entire season. He did better in the postseason, which I gave him credit for. And I keep on giving him credit for it. Joel, that's the problem. Pete Alonso thinks the problem is, yeah, great. He's better than probably 98% of first basemen, but look at the first baseman around the league. Maybe there's 3 other guys. You can go to Vladimir Guerrero. You can go to Freddie Freeman. There ain't that many really good first basemen. So that's the problem. Well, Stan, I agree with that. But again, when it comes to the individual success for Pete Alonso, right? Yeah, of course, the Juan Soto 35 plus 36 home runs is going to counteract what Pete Alonso does because I think the lineup as a whole is going to hit more home runs, right? I mean, if Francisco Alvarez was here, I would think he would hit more than 11 home runs. Even Jose Siri, if he's going to get the majority of the playing time, he is an 18 to 20 home run guy. He sucks out everywhere else, but he is a guy that hits the ball over the fence at least 18 to 20 times. In his career, it showed that. So I expect more home runs for this lineup. I'm not saying that if Pete Alonso has another 34 home run year, that the Mets are going to be struggling to make the playoffs. I don't necessarily believe that. I think the Mets are good enough to counteract that Pete Alonso situation. But last year, they weren't. They were this close, that close, to missing the playoffs. And if we would have missed the playoffs, we would have pinpointed Pete Alonso as the major factor. But because we made the playoffs, it's less of a conversation from most Met fans. Brian, I'm not bashing Alonso. I'm just telling you. See, people don't like facts. He didn't have a good season individually. And he was part of the problem why the Mets almost missed the playoffs. They didn't. Great. We had fun. We had a great season. Unexpectedly, once again. It would be nice when we have, a little bit of a possibility and a little bit more, hey, we're contenders, and a little bit more of, hey, we're supposed to make the playoffs. It shouldn't be, oh, we might. No, they should make the playoffs. When there's playoff aspirations and you're supposed to be a contender, can they actually play well and make the playoffs with that? when there's aspirations, when you're one of the favorites to win a World Series, when you're one of the top 5-6 teams to win a World Series, when your odds are very much in favor to make the playoffs, you should actually do well. The Mets have had problems when they had expectations and they failed. Right? 2022 was kind of a hit or miss. No, being better than 98% of all first basemen when the first base class in baseball isn't very good isn't nice. When you put Pete Alonso amongst the great players in baseball, he's not even close to the top 10. When you put it in one spectrum of first base, yeah, of course he's one of the better first basemen in the league, because look at the first basemen around the league. They're not very good. You probably can count on one hand superstar, all-star caliber first baseman. That's what I'm saying. But he's not probably in the top 10 of best players, probably not even in the top 15. And you can probably find a lot that he's not in the top 20. Again, this is not saying Pete Alonso is a bad player. But stop making him out to be that he's a great player, because he's not. He has enough flaws where he has issues. Now, what I've seen in spring training is what I loved about Pete Alonso in 2022 and 2019. I don't care about 2020 stats because it was a stupid year. 2021 was a down season, but that was kind of a weird sophomore season after the pandemic. So I wasn't going to kill him on that. But in 2022, he was outstanding. Gap-to-gap hitter, hitting the ball to right center field gap with power. That's when Pete Alonso was at his best. 2022 and 2019, when he was at his best. He's doing that in spring training, which, again, if he realized it himself or the coaches, he needs to go to right center. When he's hitting the ball the other way with authority, that's when he's at his best, because he has pure power and he'll hit the ball over the wall when there's mistakes, because he's a good enough hitter to do that. Pete Alonso's not a great player. Sorry. He might be a great Met, and that's not really saying anything, because the Mets haven't had a lot of great position player Mets in their team history. But again, Pete Alonso's not going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm going to tell you that right now. He might make the Mets Hall of Fame and might have his number retired, but I don't think he's going to be a Met after this year. So that's another story for another day. And Stan, I agree with you. I people are hearing me, right? I am saying he's going to have a better season. But now there's no more excuse. The contract shouldn't be over his head. And he's going to have the best protection he has ever had wearing a New York Mets uniform. So there is no more excuses from Met fans. I don't want to hear it. So if he's not doing well, there is no more excuses. But I think he's going to have a better season than last year, because it's very hard to not have a better season than last year when you have Juan Soto in front of you and Vientos behind him. And I just think Pete Alonso, the way he's looking in spring, makes me feel like he's going back to the way he was hitting-wise, and just the way his approach is, like it was in 2022 and 2019, where driving the ball the other way is a priority. That is where he's at his best. I hope he is that. All right, guys. So with Acuna and Beatty platooning, right, there's a pretty good chance that's going to happen. We know Brett Beatty has had an excellent spring training. Again, I'm not going by the spring training numbers. I don't care about that. But when the Mets tell you that Clay Holmes' spring training numbers is proof for them to start on opening day and basically make the de facto ace, but not using spring training numbers from Max Kranick over Tyler McGill in this rotation is downright idiotic. Same thing with Brett Beatty and Luisano Acuna. Acuna has played 14 games in the Major League Baseball. They were very good. They helped us, no doubt about it. But it is only 14 games. Brett Beatty has failed as a major leaguer. But when McNeil gets hurt, and says there's a competition between Brett Beatty and Luisano Acuna for second base, and then you don't give either one of them the job, but tell them you'll be platooning. Pete Alonso is better than Dave Kingman. Like that shouldn't be a debate. Yeah, zero. It should be a competition, but that's what spring training is for. Major league games, I don't need a competition. That's stupid. I'm trying to win ball games. Like, that doesn't make sense. Brett Beatty has played better than Luisano Acuna in spring training. Give Brett Beatty the job. Why are we playing games here? Because if Luisano Acuna plays on opening day because there's a lefty on the mound, you're telling Brett Beatty and everybody else on that team that you don't need to desert. You don't have to play well, and you probably deserve it. We're just going to go with this guy because whatever stupid reason. Sanders, yeah. Look, the difference with Brett Beatty, if you go back to last spring training when he had a bad spring training, if you look back to this season, and Brett Beatty's talked about he put a lot of work into his hitting and changing his approach a little bit. If you look at his swing, it is a little different. His stance is a little bit different at the plate. And I wanted to look at this because I still think it's a mental game with Brett Beatty, and we'll see if he can perform. Because again, I don't want to not root for Brett Beatty. If he's playing on opening day or playing in any game over the first couple of weeks of the season, I'm not hoping for him to fail. Yeah, and 14 games isn't enough. Again, look at Laston's millage, and I keep on going back to him because Met fans were going nearly as crazy for Laston's millage as they were for Luisano Acuna. Like, they are. It's Laston Millage had about 2 or 3 weeks of really good numbers, excellent numbers, and then he just flamed out. So I'm not going by 14 games. But if you look at the difference of Brett Beatty when he was hitting in spring last year compared to this year, the stance is a little bit different. The approach is a little bit different. Similar to what we were talking about with Pete Alonso, that his approach at spring training this year is totally different from what he did last year during the regular season, which, again, I think is a good sign for Pete Alonso. Brett Beatty, I don't know if it's going to translate to the major to the pros. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Well, Herb, I agree with that. I don't think you should platoon on just the basis is that I don't see both of these guys succeeding in a platoon situation. If you're going to go by matchups, you're telling us that the hot hand at that time, the hot bat, is going to sit based on matchups is stupid. If Luisano Acuna is hitting, I don't care that there's a tough righty on the mound and you're going to sit him for Brett Beatty. That's stupid. Vice versa. Same thing. I hope Brett Beatty gets the starting job on opening day. I don't care about Framber Valdez as a lefty. Give Brett Beatty an opportunity. He's crushed all pitching, lefty and righty, all spring training. I'm not saying it's going to translate to the pros and at the biggest level. But try it, because if you're telling me that if Clay Holmes can prove it in spring and those numbers matter, but Brett Beatty's numbers matter, Max Kranick numbers don't matter, it's stupid. Yeah, zero. I do care about Framber Valdez, but are you gonna take let's see, Brandon Nimmo out of the lineup and put Tyrone Taylor because it's a righty? No. And I'm not saying Brett Beatty's anywhere near Nimmo. I'm not saying that. But we're never going to know what Brett Beatty can do if you're only going to pitch him against righties, play him against righties. Put him against Framber Valdez. If he looks silly, well, we kind of know then, even though he's one of the better pitchers in baseball. Well, technically. Herb and Beatty should. I think he should. Stanley, that's a good point about Syrium and Taylor. There hasn't been much talk. I'm guessing, see, they're both right-handers, so I don't know how you're going to go on matchups, but I think Siri's going to get the bulk of the playing time, only because he's just a tad bit better defensively. I think he's a little bit better than Tyrone Taylor. Nothing against Tyrone Taylor. He's a great fielder. But Siri's on another level. I think because of his defense and the possibility of that sneaky power with Siri, I think the Mets like. But I do think Tyrone Taylor's going to get enough playing time, especially if Brendan Nimble's going to DH. If Brendan Nimble's going to DH early on in the season, Tyrone Taylor's going to play left field anyway. So they're going to get enough playing time. Well, Herb, I'm hoping Jet Williams never sees the light of day for the New York Mets. That means Brett Beatty or Luis Angel Acuna are really good and are our second baseman of the future. Because that means Jet Williams is so trade bait, you couldn't even say that word any faster. But we'll see. So the platoon, Acuna and Beatty, I'm not calling it a platoon. They're just going to be on the roster according to Mendoza. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. We'll know right away. The first series of the year, they got, I think, one lefty going and two righties. If Brett Beatty plays 2 out of 3, they're going by matchup. They're going to be platooning just based on lefty-righty. I don't like it, but it is what it is. Last but not least, guys, the season preview show for 2025 with myself and Chris will be on Monday. Time TBD. We're going to figure that one out. Yeah, Herb, I don't want Beatty sitting on opening day. If you're going to talk about, give Beatty let me see Beatty hit a lefty. Why do we got to hide him against a lefty? Because here's my problem. Major league hitters should be able to hit lefties and righties. If you're not, go to the minors. You're not a major leaguer. It's stupid. It's the same reason why lefty specialists are basically dead in this game now because of the 3-batter rule. You shouldn't be a major leaguer if you can't lefties or righties. It's just that simple. So season preview 2025, Monday. I think it's going to be between 6 and 8 o'clock. We'll figure out the time, but definitely it will be, the stream will be up tomorrow for that Monday show. So make sure you tune in, guys. We're going to give our win total. We're going to give our NL East predictions. We're going to give our lineup based on what we think is going to get the start with Acuna, Beatty, Siri, Taylor, Nimmo DH, Nimmo left field. A lot of things can be determined by our own lineups. I think we're going to be much different in those lineups. And also, we're going to talk about the roster when it's be finalized. It should be finalized. I don't think it's going to be finalized by Monday, but most likely it will be. I think we'll have a better understanding of the roster by then. And we'll probably go with rotation, depending on, obviously, we're not going to know the full rotation. We might know it by Monday, but we're going to give our thoughts on the rotation and where we think the guys should be in the rotation, which, again, isn't the biggest deal in the world, but we're still going to do it. So Monday, probably between 6 and 8 o'clock at night, is our season preview show for 2025. We had a really fun last year, me and Chris, for 2024. I had 87 wins, and Chris had 85. Obviously, we were a couple of wins short, but we both had them making a wild card in the playoffs. We were correct there. Mets had 89 wins. I had 87. He had 85. So we were there. I'm really curious to see what Chris chooses as a win total, because I'm still thinking about mine. I haven't really pinpointed it yet, but I'll definitely have it by tomorrow as I'm putting my info in the boxes. So Monday, between 6 and 8 o'clock, season preview show. Just so everybody knows, one of my coworkers, Mike Suriaga, one of my coworkers that I work with, he's been helping me with the search of the way to get the best merch with my logo, channel logo. New merch will be coming soon. I'm working on it right now, trying to figure everything out. Once the merch is all figured out, I will tell you guys, and I will post it to my YouTube channel, and I'll have the link on every video, every live stream, and all that fun stuff, so you can buy the merch for the channel if you want. And channel membership is going to, I'm trying to get it for opening day, but it might not be on opening day, but there'll be one membership for the channel. There won't be different tiers like I've had. I had 3 different tiers. I didn't like the way that worked. but it's going to be one membership, price to be determined. I'm still working on that, and we'll get that all started. So new merch coming soon, new channel merch coming soon. I know you guys can't wait. A lot of people have been asking me about hats. I'm working on that. Definitely t-shirts, probably hoodies, all types of other stuff, some accessories and all that stuff as well. So once that hits and once that's all settled, I'll let you guys know. If you want to purchase it, it's all good. If you don't, I'm not going to, throw you off the bridge. But, if you want to, you can, of course. And the membership, hopefully very, very soon, you'll be able to become a member of the channel. And with that, I'll have all the channel membership perks that you'll have. Obviously, the custom emojis. You'll get probably live streams once a week, giveaways monthly as well, and every now and then I'll just say, hey guys, let me get your addresses, let me throw you some Mets merch or channel merch and all that other stuff. So guys, with that said, thank you for tuning in to the first Mets Talk Live for the 2025 season. Can't wait to see you guys for Monday season preview with myself and Chris. Tune in, guys. The stream will be up tomorrow around midday, early afternoon for the season preview show on Monday. With that said, guys, have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets. And I'll see you next time on the channel, guys. Good night, guys.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are